Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Weaver, and I am the founder of KMD Books, and I am delighted to be joined today by the one and only Samantha Jewel. And wait till you hear this conversation, guys. Get excited about dirt. Honestly. Samantha, welcome. How are you going?
Look, I'm great, and very exciting music you have coming into the intro there.
It's energizing, isn't it? It's very
Very
energizing.
energizing. I'm like, oh, here we come. So yeah,
Samantha, when
don't
I
call it
first
dirt.
met you,
What?
you made carbon really interesting for me, and it is not something I expected to happen. Can you just share with everyone watching a little bit about what you're passionate about, and then we can get talking about this amazing book that we brought into the world together?
Well, ironically, I actually got into this from a point of view of mental health, and I was concerned about children being, like, I'd heard this wild thing, babies as young as 6 months old were being fed Prozac for mental health problems. And I was like, that is wild. And because I'd been looking at lots of things, and when I was pregnant with my first child, I went, that is so completely wrong. So I ended up going down this literally Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole, which I've never come out of. And around food and agriculture. So that has been my passion. It's because it's the soil, and you cannot call it dirt. It's not a dirty word. The soil
Not
and
a dirty word.
the carbon beneath your feet is really, it's everything. It underlies the survival of civilizations. And I think it's interesting that we keep talking about the climate. And the climate is obviously, it's not separate from biodiversity. It's not separate from food. It's not separate from human or animal health. It's not separate from any of those things. They're all tied into the soil beneath your feet. And carbon is literally the gold or the currency of that exchange between all of those factors that I just mentioned. It's the cycling element, and the idea of the carbon markets being that key to tie it all together to create the finance of it is, like, to me, that was like penny drop moment in 2005. I just went, oh, I've been talking with all these organic people and trying to get people to look at health in food, and it's like, it's elitist. It has to be something universal. So I kind of think it's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, and you are so passionate with it. You've been behind this and putting your energy and knowledge and everything into it for 27 years. You're telling me yes.
I'm crazy. I keep going, why am I still
But
doing
you're so
this?
passionate about it. You are so passionate about this as much as I'm passionate about books and words and how much they can change the world now and but for the future generations. And it's such an important message. Like, this is down to the groceries we buy in the shop every day important, so it's so important, and you're showing up to educate us all so that we can be part of the solution, and you are so much part of the solution. And I'm just going to start asking you some of these questions that we've penned so that you can share with our viewers why this is such an important subject. Okay. All right, so carbon is not a dirty word. I love the title. It's intriguing, it's fun, and it's it's just, I just love it. So in this book, you aim to shift the narrative around carbon. How do you see carbon playing a positive role in the future of sustainability?
Well, it because it is intrinsic to everything. It's in everything. It's part of the whole cycle of life. Once you work out how to make that continuum become strong and resilient, everything else gets strong and resilient with it. So the key missing point in all of it is money. So people think people do bad things because they want to do bad things, but the planet is losing its topsoil. Farmers are suiciding it to a day around the world because market forces, large market forces, because we won't pay more at the market, at the shop. To give you just a really simple idea, 100 years ago, a ton of wheat was $400 a ton. It's now sold for around $136 a ton for that same ton of wheat. And people will say, oh, but you've got all these big machines, but those machines cost millions of dollars. And all the things that come from that is the stripping of, rural townships. In my life, there has been 50%. We've gone from 2/3 on the land to 50-50. And they say within a few years, it'll be only 1/3 on the land and 2/3 in the city. So without farmers, we are actually screwed. It's a really critical underlying part of sustainability, and getting them paid a real wage, real life livelihood, the same way we believe we should be, is really critical to that.
It's about sustainability with it. You know, it's not as if farmers are asking to live in mansions and be rich. They're just wanting to live comfortably. You know, like the farmers get up at unearthly hours and work so many hours a day. Like it's
Or be able to
unbelievable.
send the kids to school, or actually take a day off, or, you know, like things we take for granted. They just don't have, and the children of farmers are no longer going back on the land, and they don't want them to, because it's a life of servitude. It's not a real life the way it used to be, because we deregulated the markets. They're now global markets. So in a country like Australia with high wages, the farmer is competing with slave labor in other countries for the same food. And you go, well, it's not viable. So I think that's your next question here, is how do you address the misconceptions about carbon? And I think the most widespread of those is that it's all about trees. So everyone goes, oh, well, there was all this greenwashing, and they're just, you know, like there was this whistleblower, and he talked about how they were doing trees and selling billions of dollars and still polluting. And there's all these strong concepts going out there. And of course, in every situation, there are bad players. And I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I don't really touch trees. Trees are really about, and this is the key thing I really talk about in the book, is that it isn't just about trees. And, you know, much as they're vitally important, the soil beneath your feet can't be measured from the satellite. It has to be measured physically still. You can get an estimate, you can monitor it, you can do all those sort of things. But we're really trying to get sequestered carbon. Sequestered, think of a squirrel, runs away, puts things away for winter. We're running away, putting it deep into the soil through the activity of plants. And it's really a management thing. It's about actually more animals on the land, not less. So there's quite a lot of big concepts which are really about mimicking nature, and we're very, very disconnected from all that. So I hope to really sort of get back to some basics in the book. It can be read in 4 hours, I'm told. So I hope that addresses some of those things.
Yes. And it's a global, we've talked about this before, isn't it? It's a global discussion, a global action that needs to be taken. And it's a global conversation. And it is about education, about getting people passionate about this, because it's too late whenever the next generation don't go to the land. And when, you know, it's too late then. The action, it's, you know, even now it's late in the game taking action, but it's important that it's incentivized financially for people to aspire to keep on these legacies. It's imperative for the future of the world, isn't it, Samantha?
Yeah, I think some of the other big points in it that I'm hoping to sort of touch on is there is a lot of discussion about meat and plants and fake meat and all these sort of things. And the reality is the majority of the planet, and we've only got if you imagine a square sheet of paper, we've only got a quarter of it that's got land. All the land on the planet is only like a quarter of an A4 sheet of paper. So that's not very much. And of that, imagine a business card. And of that, it's only 1/3 of a business card that's what you'd call farming land, or what you could grow plants on. The rest of it is what's called marginal land. But that marginal land is what animals can eat. And that produces protein for us if they're grazing. But the key problem is that a lot of the food that is produced in places that doesn't have a lot of land, unlike Australia. And it's in what's called factory farming, which is, I agree, terrible for animals, terrible for humans, terrible for the planet. But it is possible if we restructure a lot of things and we actually fund more people on the land, not less, because it's too much for a single farmer to do what's actually needed, which is we need to mimic being the predator. We have to be the lion. We have to be the one that's moving them across the land, giving nutrition into the land, creating that cycle, which is really critical to the animal, the plant, and our survival.
It's an ecosystem, isn't it? And
it's a sustainable ecosystem.
It's back to nature. It's back to the way things have always been. But I suppose consumption is up and waste and all of those things, I suppose.
And we do have to also sort of give credit to the fact that we have moved a lot and understand a lot more than we did in, let's say, feudal times, where maybe we were doing the right thing, but there was only a small number of people and everything was much smaller. So we got a lot more people, we got a lot bigger problems. And so, but I'm just saying there's a mix. It's like saying all medicine is bad. Well, no, it's not, because you need to, if you break your arm, you've got to go and get it set. And it's not that medicine is bad or that agriculture is bad. It's more that we need to be combining the best of both, of all the various knowledges we have, and make them synergistically working together.
Yeah, it's about being realistic, isn't it? About having a realistic approach to the solution. Can you share a moment or experience that led you to write the book or made you really passionate about reframing the conversation around carbon?
I can. Do you want to pat your dog? She's there.
He wants in the show. He wants to be part of the solution.
Well, that's the thing with animals. They always want to be part of it, which is actually critical. Look, I tell you, the passionate thing for me about the reframing of the conversation is, like I said, I got into it from a mental health point of view, and I was pregnant with my first child. But I fought for 6 or 7 years. Then my family were feeding 50,000 customers a week with the first restaurant chain in Australia. So I was really on the coalface, and I was trying to get people to want to buy organic and no chemicals and healthy soil. I saw the relationship of nutrition to soil health very early on in the piece. That was like, it didn't take long to get to that point. And then I'm like, well, people can't afford this. It's too expensive. They can't see the difference. And not all, just because you're not growing with chemicals, it doesn't necessarily mean you understand about soil health. So understanding about soil health is the critical point about it. So really the carbon brings that all back, because you cannot grow carbon or develop carbon in the soil without a really big understanding of how nature works. So, and it takes many farmers growing organically many, many years to develop that. And the best farmers, whether you're organic or biodynamic or conventional, still are it's not a recipe. It's an organic thing. It's moving in front of you. And that's one of probably the most difficult things around it, is that the reason I like carbon is this underlying point is it's a level playing ground. You have to develop the carbon, you've got to be doing the right thing with the soil and the plants and the animals. You've got to have learned that. And if it's monetized, if that part is monetized and the farmer is genuinely rewarded for development of carbon, it kind of fixes everything. It's like it fixes the financial inequality, the systems, the premiums, we don't want to pay more for the food at the market. Well, we maybe don't have to raise the value of the carbon of the food, because then they're being paid another revenue stream that will support staying on the land and not making food too expensive for people. Because we kind of all want that. The farmer wants that too, really.
Yeah, everyone wants to be part of the solution, and this is what I love about you. Like where you come from with your why is so powerful. You've got the solution, and you must feel like sometimes you're just bashing your head against the wall. It's like, come on,
screaming in the wind, absolutely screaming. What makes me laugh is when people say, "Oh, you're so well timed. You're right at the head of you're right at the right point. You're running." I said, so well timed. I'm exhausted. I've been doing this for 27 years, and I feel like nobody's listening to me. So I'm very excited that, like, in January 25, there is ESG laws coming in, and that's the first law that will actually push businesses and push, to actually have to account for what they're doing in affecting nature. Because everyone pretty much thinks of ESG as the S, the social part. It means environment, social, and governance. So it's quite a big thing. I mean, corporations are already being pushed to do things, and there's a lot of lip service going around it. And yes, they will be able to buy credits, but I'm hoping they do buy credits, because the money's only going to come from that, from business. It's not going to come from the individual shopping a certain way or donating or whatever everybody thinks it's going to come from. It's only going to come from the big polluters. So, and hopefully a lot of people also, that's another argument people put up, is, oh, it just gives them license to keep polluting. But it's like, well, actually, they have to reduce their carbon first before they're allowed to buy the excess in carbon credits. So
it means that the right boxes are having to be ticked. And let's be honest, we want people to do the right thing. We want businesses to do the right thing. But unless they have to tick that box and be encouraged to tick that box, it's not going to make a huge difference. It's going to, it has to be that. So,
and a lot of people think that isn't happening, but they don't realize that regulations take years to get put in place. And yes, maybe at the meantime, there isn't so much regulation to reduce the carbon. But if you're somebody that has to spend money where you didn't have to spend it before, you're obviously going to do something that reduces the amount of money you've got to keep paying out every year. So it's not logical. It's like thinking farmers intentionally harm their animals. It's not logical, because they wouldn't make any money then. So it's about looking at the logic of how people make money that keeps them sustainably moving forward in that way.
Because farmers want to do the right thing, but they have to live and exist and survive, and they've got families. Just like, it's crazy. If you had to give readers just one piece of advice on how to change the relationship with carbon, what would that be?
Do you know, I know it sounds pretty crazy, but I would say if you're feeling anxious or depressed or tired or unwell, or you've had an operation or lots of antibiotics or anything, or any of those things, I'd say go and find some really healthy loamy soil and get your hands in it. Because the moment you open up the soil, literally with your hands, a proliferation of healthy microbes bursts into the soil, into the air, aerosols, and you have evolved, your gut has evolved with the same microbes as the mycorrhizal fungi, which is the fungi that translates the minerals, the rock, into a liquid form into the plant, available for them to make plant food. So this smell we smell, that makes you go, oh, that's a wonderful smell, like when it rains and you smell that amazing smell. Well, it's not a fertilizer smell, it's a smell of healthy soil. It's something you recognize. You kind of can't explain it, but it's rich and loamy and it smells wonderful. And the more you get some sort of contact with that and realize you are part of the earth, we are part of nature around it, it will lift your spirits. So I'm using that, if that's one thing.
I love that, just getting into the earth. And I'm a great believer of getting in, going for walks in nature. I love freshly cut grass. Like, that just lights me up whenever I smell that smell. Beautiful.
That's the microbes. I mean, you're just smelling microbes. You are smelling phenols, but you're also smelling microbes. So, we're surrounded by them. We shouldn't be scared of them, because we've had a pandemic. There's this terror of microbes, but actually your body has every virus, every germ that you've ever had, that's ever been on the planet, is actually pretty much already in you. But the health of your entire system, your entire ecosystem, is what makes you able to resist it. And it's your mind being unhappy or so, which reduces your immunity. So the more you do what lifts your spirit, so go and cut the grass, do whatever that makes you.
I'll just be smelling it, I won't be cutting it. Isn't it? It's back to like my kids. My kids used to love digging up the back garden, and it used to make them so happy. And it's an Irish thing as well. Just let them get out in the dirt, and it'll build their immune system. It's really right, like, isn't it? It's giving them.
It absolutely is, And obviously, I suppose that's more and more difficult, because we do have toxic soils, we do have heavy metals, we do have things coming out of the, raining onto the ground from our cities. And I understand people moving away from doing that because of that. But I'm also saying, look, cultivate a situation that isn't like that, because, like mushrooms and fungi and various things that grow actually filter all those poisons. So
where do you find that good soil? Where do you find that good
forest? Go and walk in a forest with, deep leaves in it, like the Australian bush is difficult because we've got very hard soils. They're often very acidic, but there are loamy soils around. You will find them, so you'll recognize it.
Go on a soil hunt. Love it. Well, our last question, I can't believe it. I just love this conversation. Just lights me up because you can feel that it, once if we all get proactive, and get behind this, and we're going to share with you after this last question how you can do that, how you can be part of the change. Is there anything you wish more people understood or appreciated about carbon and its role in the environment that you haven't had a chance to address yet?
I think I've said a lot of those things through there.
Yeah,
but I suppose the biggest thing would be literally that the carbon markets are not a bad thing. They're not. Then the carbon is not a dirty word. It's not, they're all the polluters, they're all bad. They're not bad. They're not all bad. Yes, there's bad players. There's always bad players, but I consider that clickbait. There is a lot of people out there that want good things. And, like the individual may not be accessible to the carbon market, but you'll have, I don't know, your superannuation, you'll have your insurance companies, you have a voter's ability, you've got other ways of getting your businesses and institutions that you're associated with to support carbon. And, at the moment in Australia, there's only the Australian carbon credit, but we're working on the accessibility of a 1-year carbon credit for farmers because, the weather is difficult for them. They can't commit to 25 years and most of them are 60 plus. So we're pretty excited about it. We're very close to helping getting the first 2 million tonnes sold into the European market. So we keep the Australian carbon credit for use in Australia. That's great, but it doesn't mean that we're very much tied into the whole planet. And so don't think it's just here. We're just isolated. We are a global community and we need to realize that we are connected to it in many ways.
Absolutely. There we go. So how can you help us right now? Well, you can get talking about this book. You can share this interview. You can connect with Samantha if you want to have her on your podcast. Let's keep this conversation going. It's an important one to keep going. And as you can see, Samantha has so much gold to share and will shift your perspective. Like you just make it so interesting and get us thinking about how we can do little things in our lives daily that will make a difference. And to get out there and support the farmers and be part of the conversation and advocate for this change, just like you have been doing for over a quarter of a century. I just can't believe it. It's amazing, and kudos to you. And go and grab your copy of Carbon is Not a Dirty Word. Send us your selfies, get the conversation going on the LinkedIns and the Instagrams and the Facebooks so that we can keep this conversation going. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Samantha?
I just say, look, even if you never buy a carbon credit, buying the book will really help with just keeping that information going out to the leaders in your community. So the more they see that you value carbon and that you see the value of it, that really helps. So it's also for government people to read this book. It's not, in fact, you'll see up there is a quote from Ryan Babbage, and he's my business partner. He's just come back he's given it to the Qatari government, the Taiwan government, and to the Prince of Saudi Arabia. So the book has been endorsed by people all over the world, and it's just a little 4-hour easy read. Like, I think one of the endorsements said, it doesn't have enough, like graphs and things in it. And I'm like, I'm not that person. I don't need all the graphs and proofs and case studies. I've got
photographs and that you have taken yourself. And this is, you've lived this, you've found these solutions on your quest to make a difference. And this is so evident in this book. And that's why there's so much of you in it. And that's what's changing the narrative, that it makes it interesting rather than a textbook that's going to teach us different things. It's actually your experiences and your imagery in there. I just love that so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
I really appreciate your support too, Karen. It's been great because I've published 3 books for children back in 2006, and oh my God, it's so hard to put a book out there. It's it's such a labor of love, but I've got them in 7 languages if you've got kids and you want them to read them, so you can find them on my website, samjewel.com. Hopefully Karen will put them out soon.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing, is getting to the kids and starting that conversation at a core foundational level so that the change can happen at that level and get that information and knowledge and conversation happening there. Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget, you can contact me or Samantha to carry on the discussion. But thank you so much, Sam, for showing up and for publishing Carbon is Not a Dirty Word. Bye,
Thanks a lot.
guys.
Bye.